I think it's kedai to pick up a little bit where we left off yesterday and do a little bit of a part two. So in yesterday's daf, we saw a very big chiddush. The Torah says, "V'anshe kodesh tiyun li, ubasar basada treifa, lo yisaychelu lakelov tashlichan oisai," which pashut means there's something called an Isser Treifa. What's Isser Treifa? That was the last month of Daf Yomi. That's Perik Elu Treifas. But we saw that Chazal learned another halacha from this very same pasuk. Chazal said, "Kivan sheyatza basar chutzim chitzasay nesar." That from this pasuk we learn that if you have basar that has a mechitza and the basar leaves its mechitza, at that point it's going to be aser to eat from that basar again. What are examples of that? One example is a behema makasha leiled v'hoitzi uber es yadai v'hechzira. Even though the Mishnah says mutar b'achila, but the yad is going to be also b'achila. Shitas Rav, Shitas Shmuel, Rabbi Yochanan's chaylik, tiyufta the Rabbi Yochanan tiyufta. But the bottom line is, it's negayim b'sachtas chulin daf samaches. Another example, like we saw on Amid Beis, which we saw is really a Gemara Mesachtas Makis daf Yudches. The Rambam brings in Hilchas Ma'aser Korbanos in Perik Yud Aleph, and that is that as it relates to kachim, if you would have basar kachim kadashim that would leave the azara, or basar kachim kalm that would leave Yerushalayim, or ma'aser sheni bikurim that would leave Yerushalayim, the halacha would be that at that point you wouldn't be allowed to eat the food that left its respective mechitza. And not just that, if somebody would eat from it, he would be over this issa d'oraisa of ubas and basar treifa lo yisachelu, which the Rambam says very clearly is a lav sheyesh by malchus. The bottom line is two distinct, at first glance, completely disparate halachas that are both learned out from the same pasuk. Ubas and basar treifa lo yisachelu. Number one, the issa treifa. Number two, this issa yoytze. Now, kipshutai, the Isser Treifa is learned out from the word Treifa. Ubasa basada Treifa lo yisachelu. With Chazal see the Isser Yoitze, it's because the word basada Chazal thought was superfluous. Basar basada Treifa, and what if you found it in the shlachtos? What if you found it in the barn? What if you found it in your house? It would be the same halacha. Why did Torah say the word sada? To darshan a second drasha. Ubasar basada lo yisachelu, as if to say ubasar basada lo yisachelu, ubasar treifa lo yisachelu. Basar basada lo yisachelu, that's teaching me the Isser Yoitze. Basar treifa lo yisachelu, that's teaching me the Isser Treifa. This is something that is pashut, that emerges from Mesachtas Chulin Daf Samaches and Mesachtas Chulin Daf Samachtes. The truth is, there's another Gemara. And this Gemara is in Masechtas Chulin Daf Kuf Beis Amid Beis. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, it says in the Torah, Parshas Rei, Lo yisoichal hanefesh im habasar. And we learn from this that Evim Menachai. This is the lav in the Torah that a person is not allowed to eat Evim Menachai. Ubasa basar treifa lo yisachelu. When it says in the Torah, Ubasa basar treifa lo yisachelu, ze basa Menachai. Meaning, not only are you not allowed to eat an Evim Menachai, you're also not allowed to eat a basa Menachai. Rish Lakish Amar, Rish Lakish says, Lo yisoichal hanefesh im habasar, ze Evim Menachai, ubasa Menachai. Ubasa basar treifa lo yisachelu, ze basa min hatreifa. Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish had to learn the pasuk ubasa basada treifa lo yisachelu. According to Rabbi Yochanan, ubasa basada treifa lo yisachelu is the makar to basa menachai. Lo yisoichal hanefesh im habasar ze evim menachai. Ubasa basada treifa lo yisachelu ze basa menachai. According to Rish Lakish, basa menachai and evim menachai both learned out from lo yisoichal hanefesh im habasar. What's ubasa basada treifa lo yisachelu? Well, we always thought it was ze basa menachai. But al kopanim, I'll leave it to Rabbi Yochanan. Shahalacha kemoisai b'chol makom lebar mitlas. The makar to basa menachai is from the pasuk ubasa basada treifa lo yisachelu. If you take a look at Rashi and in Tosfos, Rashi and Tosfos both learn. I'm going to read Rashi. Ubasa basada mashma shepiresh mimikoyma. It's mashma that the basa was pirish from its makom. We know, we saw it in today's daf, that the Issa is menachai, and basa menachai doesn't just mean that you go and you take a live animal and you just bite into it. If an aver of the animal is taken off of the animal itself and you go ahead and eat that, that's also aver menachai. If you schneid a stick flesh from a live animal and you eat it, that's also basa menachai. So Rashi, ubasa basada mashma shepirish mimkoimai. It's mashma that it was pirish mimkoimai and zeu basa menachai. The taich of ubasa basada means the basa that was supposed to be on the animal, you found basada, you found it sitting in the field. And that's where Rabbi Yochanan learns from the pasuk ubasa basada treifa lo yisachel. There's something called basa menachar. The treifa zok Rashi, as it relates to the word treifa, kimashmai. That's already mashma kimashmai. In other words, Rashi is saying Avada Rabbi Yochanan learns like Reish Lakish that there is a treifas learned out from ubasa basada treifa lo yisachel. You think Rabbi Yochanan didn't know that? Of course, Rabbi Yochanan Deilu Treifas, and he knows Ubasa Basada Treifa Lo Yisnei is the makar to that. But Rabbi Yochanan held that there's another lab that's learned out from this pasuk, and that other lab is Ubasa Basada. It says Ubasa Basada, and what is Basa Basada teaching me? It's teaching me that basar that was supposed to be on the air. You have this live animal, and it should be part of the basar of the animal. And now you found it lying around in the field. That too lo yisachelu. But it's keilu nemar ubasar basada lo yisachelu ubasar treifa lo yisachelu. Basar basada lo yisachelu. That is the issa basar menachai. Basar treifa lo yisachelu. That's what we know as the issa treifa. And as always, mavur from Taisus as well. Rashi and Taisus both learning the same way. That how did Rabbi Yochanan see basar menachai in this pasuk? Because he was bothered with the word sada ubasar basada, and that's how he came to this. Truth is, just looking at this Gemara, I thought, could this be Rabbi Yochanan l'shitasai? Rabbi Yochanan in our sugi doesn't look like he holds avu basa basada kivin shiatsa basa chutzim chitzasai. The Gemara said tufta to Rabbi Yochanan tufta, but the bottom line is, what is Rabbi Yochanan going to do with ubasa basada? Rabbi Yochanan l'shitasai chulun kuf beis on beis. He learns it to teach me a similar halacha but something else, not Kivan sheyatsa basa chutzim chitzasai. That's not what Sad is coming to teach me out of the mechitza, but it's off the guf. Rabbi Yochanan, who holds that the issa basa menachai is not learned out from lo yisfleichal and nefesh mabasa, but rather it's learned out from ubasa basada. But the bottom line is, whether that is pshat Rabbi Yochanan, not pshat Rabbi Yochanan, could be it's pashut that that's pshat Rabbi Yochanan. But either way, we have over here three halachas, three lavin that are learned out from the same pasuk. Because the halacha, the Rambam paskins the regular issa treifa, ubasa basada treifa lo yisachelu. The Ram paskin shitas Rav. We mentioned kumish of the Aaron of Bilchas Machalas Asuras. That was the whole brisker Rav. That basa kimin sheyatsa chutzim chitzasa is nasa. And the Rambam, as you would expect, paskins like Rabbi Yochanan and Keneged Reish Lakish, that from ubasa basada treifa lo yisachelu, we learned this halacha of basa menachai. So there's three halachas that I learned out from ubasa basada treifa lo yisachelu. Three lavin. Fascinating thing. There is a treifa that everybody knows. Additionally, the psul yoytze, the isra yoytze, and additional to that, basa menachai. These are three lavin that are imdim berumay shaloylam, and they're all learned out from the same pasuk. And Nachmal, just to chazer over, because this is going to segue into the next part of this. How do we learn that? Ubasar treifa lo yisachelu is a treifa, but then have to say sada. So we darshan as if it said ubasar basada lo yisachelu, and really two limudim. Rav's memra in chulin daf samaches, it left its mechitza. That's what sada means. Rabbi Yochanan's memra in chulin kuf beis, it was peiresh, and that's what this means over here. Stating that, if you take a look at the Rambam in Hilchas Macholis Asuros, Perik Dalit Halacha Yud, says the Ram, if somebody chops off a piece of basar from a live animal, min atahirim, from the kosher animals, that basar is a treifa. And if somebody goes and somebody eats a kezayis from it, you're going to get malchus for being over the issa treifa. Because this basar came from a behema shloi nishchata. Umali treifa oisa chaya, mali chotcha besakin, mali bekula, mali miksasa. Harei yoimer ubasa basada treifa loisa chelu kivit shenatza behema basa basada harei hi treifa. The Rambam's paskin Rabbi Yochanan's halacha in Chulin Kofei Zamid Beis, but the Rambam says one thing that Rashi and Tosfos didn't say. V'chein achoytech basem min achai mirat tahirim harei oisai habasa treifa. And then the Rambam says a whole shtickle Torah. But the Rambam holds that if somebody eats basam and achai, he's actually eating treifa. That means there is a treifa in the world of the Rambam. There is a treifa in the world of the Rambam is basam and achai. That is what it is. There is a treifa. The Rashi seemed to learn, and Tosfos seemed to learn, that the gather of how Rabbi Yochanan learned his halach in this pasuk is not that basam and achai is treifa. It's keilu nemar. The Rambam says no. The Rambam says when someone eats basam and achai, you're eating treifa. And if that's the case, it's mavur. It's mavur that the Rambam had a definition of treifa that doesn't, I think at first glance, but Muscharishin reconciles so well what we thought. We know what a treifa is. We learned Parakelu treifas. We saw all the pictures. So we have an idea of what a treifa looks like. The Rambam saying basar min achai is treifa. At first glance, what shaykh is? Rashi and Tosfos al saying the pashut pshat. Avada basar min achai is not treifa. Just like basar kivish yasa chutz mechitzasa is not treifa. Narvas ki'ilu nemar ubasar basada lo yisaychelu ubasar treifa lo yisaychelu. But the Rambam saying no, that ubasar min achai is treifa. He says it twice. Loike mishum oichel treifa. Harei oisa habasar treifa. So the Rambam is referring to it as treifa, as if to say it's one shem treifa. Lo yishna if it's basar min achai. Lo yishna if it's one of the treifas of perakelu treifas. If it's nikav areya. And at first glance, what is basar min achai? You have to do a nikav areya. L'chayritz. It's very, very sasa. The Hilgach Sam Sofer, and that Gemara in Masechtas Chulin Daf Kuf Beis Amud Beis, so he says, I'm going to tell you what I think the pshat. I'm going to tell you what I think the pshat in this Rambam is. The Rambam must have learned that the taich of treifa is when you have a live animal and you removed a little bit of basar from that live animal. That is what's referred to as treifa. You saw a treifa lying around on the ground. If you go ahead and you teiref a little bit of that's sitting there, you eat it, that's what the definition of treifa is. Treifa is, like Rabbi Yochanan says, basar min achai. That is the taich of what a treifa is. But it doesn't matter if that basar was pirish min achai because you went ahead and you were pirish min achai, or if it was pirish min achai because the ze'ev came and he was teiref it, and that's what caused it to be pirish min achai. At the end of the day, if there's basar lying on the side of the road or lying in the field that was nifresh min achai, that's what a treifa is, and the Torah says treifa lo yisaychelu. And really, the Chassam Sofer says the ubasa basar the treifa lo yisaychelu is the basar that was pirish from the live animal. Lo yishna if the prisha happened al yedei an adam. Lo yishna if the prisha happened al yedei an animal. But here's the point. Chazal said there are certain times where if something was pirish from an animal, meaning something happened to an animal, where we say that the existing animal is not going to be able to live anymore. When we see that, then the way we deher the prisha is not just I have a chai and something was pirish min achai. The way I see it up over here is that the two were nifresh me each other, and it's not only the basar that you remove that we look at as being the treifa, but the remaining animal is also deemed as being a treifa. B'l'shoinei azav shalmar nachsam sofer. V'ima behema nishra b'briyusa v'chiyusa ein kan treifa ela oisa habasar shetolash azef. V'im also, however, kol behema misukenes. But if the entire behema became a misukenes, v'hi basar haru uyulekelev hareu ki'ilu hazev. So then the way we look at it is if the ze'ev came and he chopped the animal into two parts. Umali chatichazu oizu shneim tarfam hazev. V'hainu treifa dekra. V'zeu das Rambam nimtzu basar min achai hainu treifa mamish. And it comes out basar min achai is literally the treifa. In other words, the taich of a treifa is where you have basar that was nitraf, it was nitlash from a live animal. That basar you're not allowed to eat. And I don't care if a person did it or if an animal did it. Call it basar min achai, call it treifa, whatever you want. That is what treifa is. There are times where if you go ahead and you do that, what's left is also going to be considered as if it was ripped apart. Now, the way it was ripped apart was you took A from B. But when you took A from B, you didn't just tear A from B, you tore B from A as well. Mali chatichazu. Shneim tarfam hazev. Because Punk the Zev was holding on to the left ear, but the Maisa, you tore the left ear away from the right ear, and really you tore the right ear from the left ear. I don't care what side of the animal, what aver it was that the Zev physically got his teeth and put his clenches into. At the end of the day, you ended up tearing it apart. So really, just like the chelik that was torn apart is treifa, the chelik that's remaining is also considered a treifa. And that's what the general idea of treifa is. Then Chazal went, and took this and expanded it a little bit. That just like if you take an animal, you chop it into two. If it's a nikav, that's also going to be included. And if there's a hole in the Beis HaKosis, etc., etc., etc. But the bottom line is, from the fact that the Rambam calls basar min achai treifa, it's muchach to me that the taich of treifa is basar that was pirish min achai. Lo yishna al yedei adam, that's the way you visualize your classic Basar Menachai. Lo Yishna al Yedei Ze'ev. That's usually the way you visualize the halacha of Treifa. And the point of the Treifa, Velo Treifas is that when what was separated is such that it made such a profound difference on the live animal, then I look at the live animal as also being torn apart. Mali chatichazu, mali chatichazu. They were torn from each other. And just like this piece I wouldn't be able to eat, even if a person did, it would be Basar Menachai. That part also not, because it's viewed as Basar Menachai, viewed as Treifa. Again, it's all one Shem, it's all going to be one thing. So really, the taich of Treifa, this is the tricky part. The taich of Treifa is not an animal that has some wound that's not going to be able to live. Treifa is when you tore apart a piece of an animal. That's why Basar Menachai fits right into the Pshuta Shal Mikra, into the taich of Treifa. Said Marnach Sam Sofer. What was the makar to the Rambam to learn this way? First glance, it sounds a little bit like Rashi must have learned it a little bit more pasha, right? What was the makar to the Rambam to learn that Basar Menachai is not just included in the pasuk of Treifa, Ubasar basada lo yisechelu, Ubasar Treifa lo yisechelu, but rather Basar Menachai he Treifa. Says the Chassam Sofer, you want to know where I think the Rambam got it from? He got it from Targum Onkelos. If you take a look at Targum Onkelos, va'anshe kodesh tiyun li, ubasa basada treifa lo yisechelu lakelov tashlichan oisai. Zok Targum Onkelos, va'anshe kadishin tahoim kodamai ubesar tlish min cheva chaya lo yisechlun lechalba tirman yaseh. Targum Onkelos teaches ubesar tlish. What does besar tlish mean? Basa that was torn, min cheva chayef, from a live animal, oisechlun the chaber siman yaseh. Onkelos, the ultimate pashtan taich. You know what ubasa about sada treifa lo yisechelu means? It doesn't say a word about parakelu treifas. Doesn't say a word about anything. Ubsar tlish min cheva chaya. He said basa menachai, which in of itself is a pella. He would taich it basa menachai. It doesn't make sense that he would taich it basa menachai. But the teretz is because really basa menachai is treifa, and treifa and basa menachai is one and the same thing. But al kopanim, the Rambam saw in Targum Onkelos Zoktach Sam Sofer that we're not just being marba from the extra word basada basam menachai. Ubasa basada treifa lo yisechelu. The taich of it is upsar tlish min cheva chaya. That is what the taich is, and being that that's what the taich is, that's why the Chassam Sofer said must be that basam menachai isn't just nisraba from the pasuk of treifa from ubasa basada, but really basam menachai is treifa. The Chassam Sofer that we just mentioned is a Masechtas Chum Daf Kuf Beis on that Gemara Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Really, the Chassam Sofer talks about this inyan a little bit in the beginning of Parakelu Treifas Ayin Sham. It's a half-a-liga piece, and over there he says that he found that his Rebbe Moiri the Hafla in a Sneif Panim Yafis already spoke about this inyan. So I looked up the Hafla. And the flaw goes with this same mahalach, that the makar to the Rambam is Targum Onkelos, and that's where the Rambam saw that this is the taich of the pasuk. The taich of the pasuk is the b'sar chivya. And then he goes ahead and he says something beautiful. He says, "V'nira the tama Targum." I believe that the tam of the Targum is mishun de medayik. The Targum made a moir digadik. This is mamish beautiful. Targum made a diak. We know the Torah says, what do you do with the treifa? The Torah says, la kelov tashlichan oisai. What do you do with the nevela? The Torah says regarding the nevela, lo yisaychlu kol nevela, lo ger asher b'sharecha titneno v'achala, oy machas lenachri ki am kodesh at l'Hashem lekech le'isavash l'dechalevima. Either give it to the ger toisha or sell it to the nachri. And Rashi already asks the kasha. The why is it that the treifa you give to the kelev and the nevela you give to the nachri? In fact, Rashi says, "La kelev tashlicha noisei af ha'akum kekelev." That really the akum is like a kelev, and if you want to go ahead and you want to give the treifa to the akum, avad you're allowed to give it. Right? So why does it say "La kelev tashlicha noisei"? Rashi says two pshatim kiyadua. But the bottom line is that Rashi was bothered with this diak. Why by the treifa does it say "La kelev tashlicha noisei"? And why isn't that when it comes to the nevela over there the Torah says, "What do you do with the nevela? You give it to the guy." Zok the hafla. I hold the Onkelos was bothered with this kasha. He could understand Pshuto Shal Mikra. Why here la kelev and why there do you give it to the guy? Ha Targum Onkelos Fashtanin. You know what the pshat must be, because you know what this pasuk is saying. What this pasuk is saying is not just the Issa Treifa, Perakelu Treifas. It's saying Basam and Achai. Basam and Achai is one of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. And being that it's one of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, he can't give it to the guy. That's why in Pshuto Shal Mikra, it had to be like Kelev Tashlichan Oisai. Onkelos was bothered with this Grace Akasha. This is what was driving Targum Onkelos. What was driving him is that why is it that when it comes to the Treifa, it's like Kelev Tashlichan Oisai. Yeah, when it comes to the Nevelo, you go ahead and you give it to the guy. Must be, over here it's Basam and Achai, and being that it's Basam and Achai, over here it's going to be different. I saw in the Pirush Ala Torah from Rabbeinu Avram ben Arambam. It's just a beautiful sikkum on this raid. It says Rabbeinu Avram ben Arambam, right? This is the Rambam's son. We have from Rabbeinu Avram ben Arambam on Bereshis and Shemois, brand new Maduras, that the Magia is Yedidi, HaChacham, HaGoyin, Ramoshi Maiman. But either way, so he says as follows: V'anshe kodesh v'goymer pashte dekra she'anoshim ba'isei azman k'moy she'ayu oichlen hanavela hayu oichlen basar atreifa k'moy she'anu roim ayoim eitzel ha'yishmaelim in parentheses shneim oichlen mashe nitraf bitzi dasam af al pi she'im oisrem es ha'mesa l'chein omar ki min ha'kedusha she'timnu es atzmechem me'achilas basar she'nitraf v'loi nishchat k'moy she'timnu es atzmechem mi'basar ha'mesa v'chizek es ha'azar b'maimel ha'kelev loi mar ki u'maychol roya l'groya she'bebali l'garu she'bebali chayin. It belongs to the Grush of Bali Chaim. Uboy gam taimim acher. Shahitziu hachachamim zal. But there are other halachas, says Rabbeinu Avram ben Arambam, that the chachamim extrapolated from this pasuk. Echad mehem ha'azora al basam and achai. K'mo shebiyah ha'metargem ubasar tlish min cheva chaysa. V'hasheni ha'azora la'achila kol treifa k'may hadrusa u'kayotzaba k'may shenizbayer b'mesachtes chulin daf mem gimel v'hashlishi shehizra la'achilas basar sheyotza chutz l'mchitzasai k'may basar pesach sheyotza chutz l'chaburasai ubasar basade v'goymer lefi hergel hanoida u'mashnenitra b'chatzer k'moisai. Why we mention basadik? That's usually where it happened. Ukazem mikra laila lefi haroy v'haragel u'mikra yoim k'moisai. V'hatargum shepiresh by basat tlushim bebehem achaya l'ramaz le'evim menachai. Omnam tamze nichla b'maimer ach basa b'nafshoy. There's another makar that Chazal gave for the Sheva Mitzvahs, and then Rabbeinu Avram ben Arambam concludes v'lo yodati le'eze tam omar targum maimer zeh. I don't know why the Targum said this maimer. Now, Ramoshi Maimin in his Agol over here brings a little bit of a tumult in the Mefarshei Rabbeinu Avram ben Arambam, like what he meant, what was bothering Rabbeinu Avram ben Arambam. But he comes out, and I think it's pashut, that what was bothering Rabbeinu Avram ben Arambam is there's three mahalchim, there's three chazals that we learn out from this pasuk. Perakelu treifes chulin daf mem beis ubasa basad treifa lo yisaychelu bas hakim sheyatza chutz l'mchitzasai. And then Basam and Achai, Chulin Kuf Beis. So V'lo I don't know le'ezeh tam Amar Targum. Why did the Targum feel that in the Pashut Pshat of the pasuk, you know what it's referring to? Ubsar Tlish Min Cheva Chaysa. Mehechetesa, not the other two. V'lo yodati. Rabbeinu Avram ben Arambam concludes with a kasha. He says, I'm not sure why this is the pshat that the Targum picked, but I think the teretz is the hafla. That's the teretz. The teretz is because the pasuk says, La Kelev Tashlichan Oisai. Why do you have to go ahead and give it to the Kelev? Make a profit off of it. Maybe give it to the guy. The pasuk says by the nevela, lo yisoichlu kol nevela. So what do you do? La gera shebesharecha titnenu v'achala oy machar lanachi am kadashat Hashem aleikecha. The teretz is because the Targum saw that the pashut pshat in this pasuk must be that we're dealing with something that even a guy is not allowed to eat. Must be it's basam and achai. That's why the Targum, who's being mefarish the most pashut pshat in this pasuk, how was he mefarish it? He was mefarish it with regards to basam and achai. This Panim Yafis could be the teretz to the V'lo yodati le'ezeh tam Amar Targum maimer zeh. That's the teretz to Rabbeinu Avram ben Arambam's kasha. Either way, three tremendous lavin that I learned out from this pasuk. Ubasa b'sada treifa lo yisaychelo.